Right, so welcome back to the workshop, and if you remember, the idea was for me to restore the Guyatone LG50 and in parallel to that make a replica of it. So I wanted to start work on that replica now, making up the body blank and also the neck blank. Things didn't quite go to plan, so I shall let you see how it all unfolds. So the construction of the neck itself is really quite straightforward. The whole profile was just being cut out of one piece. There's no spliced head joint there. The neck itself is laminated, 2 pieces of maple for the bulk of it, a central core of walnut and just a couple of little wings glued on to make up the width of the head. You don't see the walnut on the front because it's got a head overlay that matches the veneer on the body. So there we go, I've made up my template, and I'm going to start marking out and cutting out the maple and then the piece of walnut for the middle. Yeah. So you can see how I've roughly cut that out. So what will happen is that piece will come over and glue on there so that the grain will be running in opposing directions, and that will aid the stability of the neck. So here we are the next day. I've planed the surface that the fretboard's going to go onto, cut the angle for the head and plane that flat. So those surfaces are my kind of datum that everything else is measured from. And you can see then that I've measured the thickness, marked on the thickness of the head and also the profile of the neck. So I'm going to cut that out now on the bandsaw. So that's just about all I'm going to do on the neck blank for the time being. The next job will be to route a slot for an adjustable truss rod, although the original one hasn't got one. I will put one in this. Not that I necessarily think it needs one, but I think some players like the security of having one there, and also I'll put a couple of carbon fibre strips down there. Once all that's been routed out, I can glue the wings on and shape the head. So yeah, coming along nicely. So I'm at the stage now where I'm having a good look at the body, doing a drawing of it and thinking about my kind of reproduction body that I'm going to make for this. I mentioned in the previous video about this element of handmadeness on the neck, and that is very apparent on the body here. And in fact, the way it's been made reminds me of back in the day when I used to teach a group of lads electric guitar making. Much of it is done in a similar vein. Normally, when you look at a solid body from a factory, everything would have been routed out really neatly and cleanly. The whole thing would have been, the body blank would have been put on some sort of jig. There would have been an overhead router, and it would have all been cut out in one go. But with this, you can quite clearly see chisel marks everywhere. This hole for the selector switch has been drilled with a Forstner bit. The control section here, obviously 2 large diameter holes drilled, and the waste part in the middle chiselled out. The channels for the wires, this is how I would have done it back in the day. Would have drilled through the jack socket and into the control panel and into that switch area, and a similar thing for the earthing wire. I must admit I don't like drilling holes like that, so in my one I'm going to route a few channels. But yeah, so there's an element of handmadeness to it. So the central core of the body seems to be made up from some kind of sapele, utile, mahogany type substitute. So that's what I'm going to use for my body blank. So I've glued up this this sort of sapele blank, and what I've done is I've routed a channel here, and that's going to be for my earthing wire. So it's going to go from the tailpiece, go to the where the pickups will be, and be routed to the jack socket that way. And I've routed a channel here which will go from the selector switch to the volume and tone controls. Now what I'm going to do then is I'm going to cap those with a strip of sapele, sand the whole thing flat, and then veneer the top of it. So on the Guyatone body, it's been veneered front and back in maple. So what I bought is a whole batch of consecutive figured maple veneers, and what that will allow me to do is book match the veneers and have more or less identical veneer cut facing on the top of the body and also on the back of the body. So that's going to be one of my next steps. Right, so at this moment in time I'm not particularly happy. As you can see, I've got the body blank here. I've veneered it. Really happy with the way all of the veneer came out. As you just saw, started to cut the body shape out, and what did I find? I found a whole heap of trouble. All of these splits, don't know if you can see them. I'll show you a photograph in a moment. Look, all of these splits, look at that. in this cutaway area here. Yeah, right, so that's obviously a bit of a blow. I clearly wouldn't have the confidence to continue working on this, and me being me, there's no way I'm going to bodge that up and try to sell it on to someone. So no, this unfortunately is now scrap, and all I can do is start this process of making the body again. So yeah, I better get on with that, and until next time, thanks for taking the time to watch, and yeah, see you again soon, hopefully in better spirits. Cheers.